Baltimore and Buffalo on bye. Oh my, we need some waiver wire replacements for Fantasy Week 7 right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. All right, we're going to rush to beat the waiver wire. And yeah, a couple of powerhouses there on offense. Baltimore and Buffalo on the bye. Of course, Baltimore hasn't exactly been that. But Dave, who's the headliner? Who's the big stash?
Well, before we get to the headliner, let's not forget that in week 8, 2 teams on bye. In week 7, 2 teams on bye. In week 8, 6 teams on bye. I was too busy trying to figure out how many fingers to hold up. The bye-nado is in week 8. It wouldn't be wrong to get ahead of things and start preparing for that now. And there might be some instances during our little mini show here where I can tell you about some players to pick up for week 6, week 7, obviously, and then week 8. But the big stash, the guy I like the most, Colston Loveland, 76% available on CBS. I think there's a post-bye bump coming. Looks like he practiced on Wednesday. 6th best projected schedule for tight ends, week 6 through 9. And he's already had his bye already. So if you add him, you're getting yourself one of the top prospects in the 2025 draft. Be prepared to hold him, not just through week 6, obviously, but also week 7. We might be starting him in week 7. Heck, you might be desperate at tight end and might be starting him in week 6 against Washington. I think that might be going a step too far, but he's going to be my favorite stash candidate out of everybody that we talk about.
How about that? Colston Loveland. All right. We liked what we saw before he got hurt after only a few snaps a few weeks ago. And Colston Loveland is the headliner. Do you want to go to DSTs? Or do you want to go to quarterback?
Let's go to quarterbacks.
All right.
If you don't mind, because Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, we're already without Lamar Jackson. Now another week without him, week 7, he's on bye. So is Josh Allen. Who knows if Brock Purdy will be back. And again, we're a week, 2 weeks away from the big bye-nado week. First thing you need to do, check for CJ Stroud on your waiver wire. He's 32% available as of Thursday. By the time we get to Saturday, that could look like 40, maybe even 45% available as teams start to trim their roster to get ready for week 6. He's on bye in week 6. You can't use him. Week 7, he's at Seattle. Not the best matchup in the world, but the way that the Houston offense has looked the last couple of weeks, I think Stroud can be okay. The other quarterback to look for, Trevor Lawrence, 46% available. He will get the Rams in Europe in week number 7. Again, not a favorable matchup, but if we see another good game from Lawrence like we saw on Monday and another off game from the Rams defense like we saw last Thursday, I think we could buy into this one. So if you've got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, you need a replacement ready to go. You might have one already for Jackson and Purdy. Josh Allen, you almost certainly do not. Those 2 quarterbacks fit the bill. 2 other ones, tougher matchups, Sam Darnold against Houston, Tua Tagovailoa at Cleveland. Again, 2 quarterbacks not available in even 50% of leagues, but they've got opportunities to put up some points.
Yeah, I would look at Bryce Young, obviously, because you got this week with Dallas, but then next week you have the Jets. So if you're the Lamar Jackson manager, that's someone you probably already have looked at.
Would you trust Bryce Young if he doesn't have a big game this week against Dallas?
No, but you might have to make the decision before that.
Sure. You could always pivot off of him if you stash him and he stinks. Right. Go and find another quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are only 2 teams on a bye. One of those teams is already without its starting quarterback. So Lamar Jackson manager has already got a backup quarterback going this week. So you don't have that much quarterback competition next week on the waiver wire. So if Bryce Young does play well against Dallas, you're probably going to have some faith in him against the Jets. They're a really good matchup. So that's I think where I would go for. I think I would go there first.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree. Dave, running backs.
I've got a secret weapon for you to use when picking up running backs this week. It's your thumb and your pointer finger, because you're going to need them to hold your nose as you go to pick up these players, because they absolutely stink. You can check for Kendre Miller, Kareem Hunt. You can speculate on Kenneth Gainwell, Nick Chubb. These are all guys that are already rostered in 2/3 of CBS Sports leagues, and they would be gems compared to the guys that you might have to chance it on. And it's the Chargers running backs, Kamani Vidal, Hassan Haskins. They're not even available in 50% of CBS leagues. People are so crazy for running backs that it's really hard to get your hands on them. Otherwise, you're looking for a running back, 7 to 10 PPR points is what you'd hope for. Tyjae Spears would probably headline that list, and he's got the Patriots in week 7. That's not going to be an easy matchup. I'll have some other names for you on Saturday, but keep an eye out for one name who seems to be seeing his rostership dwindle, and that's Trey Benson. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out for, but he's available in 34% of CBS leagues, and it's rising.
Whoa.
And
Whoa.
that's an IR stash for you to go and get. If you see Trey Benson on your waiver wire, pick him up.
Yeah, but look, if you have an IR spot, you're probably already stashing him. So you have to make room, but it's still worth it, I think. I would do everything I can to use a bench spot if I don't have an IR spot on Trey Benson. For example, same roster percentage as Joe Mixon. And I'd rather 10 times as desirable of a bench stash Trey Benson compared to Joe Mixon.
We don't even know if Mixon's going to play. And if he does, we don't know what he'll look like, how effective he'll be. We've seen Trey Benson. We think he can come back to being a capable RB1 for a team.
Okay, let's take a break. Wide receivers and tight ends and DSTs after this. All right, I've unplugged my nose, Dave. I'm ready to get some wide receivers.
It's a little bit better at wide receiver than it is at running back. Let's do a check for on these 5 names. And again, these are guys that are rostered in a high amount of CBS leagues, but maybe they're on your waiver wire. Some of them are coming off of an injury. Others are coming off of a bye. In the case of Trey Tucker, he's coming off of a game where he wasn't amazing. But Matthew Golden tops the list. Juwan Jennings is next, and we saw Juwan Jennings practicing on Thursday. Rashid Shaheed, Trey Tucker, Calvin Ridley, in that order. If they're out there, go and pick them up. Receivers who are usable in week 6 and week 7. It starts with Kendrick Bourne. He's 45% available at Tampa Bay this week, then against Atlanta. Just have to make sure that those 49ers receivers, other than Jennings, are still sidelined. That would be Pearsall. That would be Ayuk. I think Kittle is still going to be available in week 7. I don't know if that necessarily, it certainly doesn't help Kendrick Bourne, but I don't know if it hurts him that much. Another name, and we've talked about this name for a while, is an IR stash. Jalen Coker, 77% available, has Dallas this week if he's activated. And if he's not, then he's at the Jets next week. Just make sure he's off IR before you put him in your lineup. It's pretty simple when it comes to Jalen Coker. And then one other stash guy, Isaiah Bond with the Browns, 87% available. He's at Pittsburgh this week. I don't really love that, but then he's got Miami the week after, and that's a really good matchup for him. So I think that you could see Isaiah Bond as somebody that can step up and be a good stash receiver. Get him now, give Dylan Gabriel a week, and then go ahead and consider Isaiah Bond as a possible bye week replacement, maybe even a flex.
Tight ends.
I'm going to give you the name that I like for this week and next week and the week after that at tight end, and it's Mason Taylor. And our audience did not go crazy for Mason Taylor. Still out there in 57% of leagues. He's got the Panthers coming up after this week, and then Cincinnati after that. So that's a nice 1-2 punch for Mason Taylor. Seems to be the check down guy for Justin Fields. Should be able to keep commanding a decent amount of targets. We talked about Colston Loveland. Other tight ends for week 7. Harold Fannin, 67% available against Miami. Jonnu Smith, 77% available. Oh, why would you want Jonnu Smith, you're saying? Because he's going to take on Cincinnati in week 7. And then A.J. Barner, tough matchup against Houston in week number 7, 78% available. Dude just seems to keep scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I knew you were interested in Jatavian Sanders, too. He's back at practice. He was limited on Wednesday.
That's not a bad one. I'll probably add him to the list for the Saturday thread that I do on X.
A lot of guys, but Taylor really jumps out because Taylor has great matchups. 3 of his next 5 matchups are against teams that are bottom 5 against tight ends. He does have a bye, unfortunately, in there as well, but clearly looks like the number 2 target right now for the Jets.
And if you're asking me, well, I can only pick up one of Mason Taylor and Colston Loveland. I think it comes down to what you need. If you need a tight end as a starter for your team, Mason Taylor makes all the sense in the world. You should prioritize him. If you're already good at tight end and you want to shoot for upside, that would be Loveland. I think that he's the one that has more upside rest of season than Mason Taylor, even though Taylor's in a pretty good spot himself.
Okay, and let's get some DSTs for Fantasy Week 7.
Check for the Patriots. We talked about them last week. In week 6, they've got New Orleans, then Tennessee, then Cleveland, and then Atlanta. Man, the Patriots DST has been really good. They're available in about a third of CBS leagues. The next best one that I've got to recommend, and I don't really love recommending them, but at least they're getting healthy, is the Bears DST. 83% available. They get the Saints after this week, and 11 fantasy points or more to the two of the past three defenses that have taken on New Orleans. And Chicago, for what it's worth, has scored 10 fantasy points. Their DST has in 3 of their first 4 games. So they'd probably be my favorite. You can try and convince me on one or the other of these next 2 DSTs, the Jets and the Panthers. Not necessarily teams with a lot of great talent, although the Jets are getting healthier. We talked about it on the main show. Jermaine Johnson expected back for them. They take on Carolina. If the Panthers offense doesn't show signs of big improvement over the next couple of weeks, maybe you'd be interested in starting the Jets against those Panthers. They've allowed 13 or more fantasy points to 3 of the first 5 DSTs that they've faced.
Got a big one for you here. Got the Chiefs. Chiefs are facing the Lions this week, so people dropped them. They're 51% roster. They get the Raiders.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Great call.
Yeah. All right. So the Chiefs you can throw on that list as well. Thank you, Dave Richard. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll talk to you on Starter Sit for the NFC home games on Friday on Fantasy Football Today. See ya.